and obnoxious clothes, thinks communism is the way to go. She's a whore, a whole dime a dozen Jezebel. Laura Ryan and Express eyes, 1,000 yards there for all those guys that you fucked and took before you came along.
We are live. Welcome to the Digital Renegade podcast. I'm your host, Dashing Rogue, one with my frequent sidekick, Artistic Layman.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message. I love you. Now, back to our show.
I love you too. Some people that might actually have saved some kid's life someday. I don't know. I mean, just by statistics, I don't know. But yeah, welcome everyone. We're gonna as it said in the podcast originally, or the title, this is gonna be about the Gnostic sex cult. And apparently the Gnostic sex cult is a thing. It actually is a thing. If you're not gonna watch it any further than here, basically just know that James Lindsay and his Gnostic sex cult thing is basically just Marxist liberation theology applied to neo-paganism. That's what it is. In fact, it's basically taken over neo-paganism. Right? Yeah, it is. It's Gnostic principles applied to Marxism. You know, the idea that we could have utopia on Earth, we just need to perfect humanity. You know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would argue, and it's kind of reverse, but you know, that's not the point of this podcast. It's not the point of the stream today.
Well, first off, let's actually have it defined as James Lindsay would have defined it. Here you go, Luke. This is actually something I just discovered today. It's very good stuff. Highly recommend this channel for those who need to know who Eric Voegelin is, because that's really what it's Voegelin Gnosticism. That's a new term I'm going to be coining today. Voegelin Gnosticism. Ah, yes, the other 0.5% of occultist orgies. Yes, indeed, Luke.
Let's see.
Here we go.
So I intended to do this a while before, but just various things
Show it on the screen.
Prevented me from doing it. But I did want to spend some time for the next 2 to 3 weeks on Science, Politics, and Gnosticism. It's a small book by Eric Voegelin.
I'm going to buy this. Come next
really
paycheck.
Introduction to the ideas of Eric Voegelin, where you don't get into a lot of the language barriers regarding Voegelin. Voegelin came up with his own lexicon, basically, which is somewhat justifiable given the concepts he's trying to convey. But it makes it
and here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. If you build a lexicon to the point where you have to join the cult to understand a cult, you're doing it wrong, right? That's like the one thing I will say that James Lindsay and Karl Borosenko are at fighting heads about. That's really what I think is going on here, is that James has basically gone to the point where he has become on the same tier as a feminist when it comes to like feminist theory, except it's applied to Gnostic, Voegelin Gnosticism. That's what I think is going on.
So what do
you know?
So he's just using. So he's losing people in the language.
Yes, he's losing people in the language. He's alienating people away because he's becoming far too academic, and because, let's be frank with ourselves, academics have a bad name right now, really bad name. So but this is exactly what he's talking about. It's a great introduction. Keep playing it, Luke.
It'd be hard for people to figure him out right off the bat. So, for instance, if you read The New Science of Politics, which is what I would recommend if you like this type of content, you would have to take some time to just sort of grapple with some of his references, such as immanentizing the eschaton. But anyway, like in this book, you don't have to deal with that so much. It's basically 2 essays
talked about before,
by Voegelin, both of them relatively short. The entire book is about 100 pages, a little less actually. So it would be a great introduction for instructors that just wanted their students to know the basic ideas, political ideas of Voegelin. Voegelin is a 20th century political thinker. There's a Voegelin Institute at Louisiana State University, and that is where he worked for quite some time. So Voegelin is probably most famous for reconceptualizing Gnosticism and applying the concept of Gnosticism to 20th century mass movements. Of course, he was dealing the same with a lot of other thinkers from this time period. He was dealing with the big question of how humanity got to the point where these highly violent, destructive mass movements, such as Nazism, fascism, and communism, how did they get their start, and where did they get their juice, their capability of leading so many people down such a destructive path? And he clearly, in this introduction to this small book, he clearly has grappled with this himself prior. So he mentions his own book, New Science of Politics, and he also mentions some other authors that have grappled with the concept of, like secular religion and this type of stuff. And he doesn't want to distance himself from these other authors, or the whole idea that perhaps these movements are like secular religions, but he does go deeper.
They are.
Explain that this is something that has its roots much further back in history, I guess you might say, than what they would think, right? Like my own scholarship tends to revolve around, what happened in modernity, right? And it's not that Voegelin doesn't ask the question, what happened in modernity, but he doesn't focus as much on just that modern moment of, say, the 16th century onward, but he looks back to changes even in the ancient world as sort of a root that he can then.
This is the exact type of person that Carlin Bordesenko should listen to. This is the bridging of the gap, the idea that we can make our own religious movement that is not religious, but it's idealist, like anti-abortion or anti-fascism or Nazism. They're cults of personality or ideals,
Yeah, I mean, Carlin is still like her focus is that they're not losing the language that is used by the modern Marxists and the communists. The problem is their ideas stem with the ideas, and so there's something to learn from both sides of this conversation. But no one's talking. But the spat just keeps separating them.
Absolutely, I agree. The right brain doesn't know what the left brain is doing. No pun intended. That's an occult. That's cult shit right there. We're getting there, people. We're getting there. Keep playing it.
Yeah, it's so because occult language is so ingrained. I mean, as Lady James Lee points out, the West has been created by the three magisterium of faith, reason, and mysticism to the point where you can barely tell them apart, unless you create like a clear divine line, like the New Atheist movement, which may have well just been a Gnostic cult in disguise.
Use to understand these contemporary phenomena. So this book was written published in 1968. It is informed by his previous research in New Science of Politics, which was published in 52. It's grappling with the violent mass movements of the 20th century, which he is willing to refer to as ersatz religions. And he says in the introduction, there was talk during this time period in the 20th century, as they were trying to figure this out, there was talk of neo-pagan movements, of new social and political myths, or of mystique politique. I, too, tried one of these ad hoc explanations in a little book on political religions. So he is wanting to move forward here and develop the idea of applying Gnosticism, the idea of Gnosticism, which is a very ancient movement, to the mass movements of his time. So, for instance, in the introduction, he refers to the cosmological civilizations of Mesopotamia, Syria, and Egypt, as well as for the peoples of the Mediterranean in the 7th century before Christ, and that they inaugurated this age of ecumenical empires. And what that refers to is just the idea that these empires rose up much more powerful than the ones that came before them, and with the goal of basically encompassing as much of the world as they possibly could. That's what he means by ecumenical empires. Ecumenical sounds nice, but in this case, I don't think he means it that way. These empires rose up, and they tried to conquer others of different religions and different languages, and the power of people at this time then created a lot of turmoil amongst the populations. So he says the interpenetration of cultures reduce men who exercise no control over the proceedings of history to an extreme state of forlornness in the turmoil of the world, of intellectual disorientation, of material and spiritual insecurity. The loss of meaning that results from the breakdown of institutions, civilizations, and ethnic cohesion evokes attempts to regain an understanding of the meaning of human existence in the given conditions of the world. Okay, so in a nutshell, he's saying at a time of destructive empires that are fighting amongst themselves, fighting to gain territory, and cultures are mashing together as a result of this movement, of these wars, and government is getting bigger and bigger in people's lives. Ordinary people are reduced.
What do you think so far, Luke?
It's perfectly aligned with what I know so far.
Skip ahead a bit because I don't want to watch the whole video, but this is basically what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the idea that because of divine revelation, because of my own will, we should run society this way.
Mm-hmm.
It's special revelation. There we go.
Repose.
Well-
The Polybian vision of pragmatic ecumene destined to be created by Rome. The mystery religions, the Heliopolitan slave cults, Hebrew apocalyptic, theology, the idea that, we're waiting for the end times. Christianity also, and Manichaeism, which is this religion in which the world is seen as basically a battle between the equal forces of good and evil. Some of these I don't know much about, others I do, but what ties them all together is that they were all attempts to grapple with this new, violent, unpredictable world where the individual really didn't have any way of controlling their fate or felt like it. And they appeal to people's sense of internal improvement, within themselves, growing stronger, more secure, finding their peace within what they could control. And he says in this sequence, as one of the most grandiose of the new formulations of the meaning existence, belongs Gnosticism. Gnosticism was a 1st and 2nd century born Judeo-Christian movement that was born, he says, of the same impulse to try to gain real wisdom through this spiritual context of Judaism and Christianity, that would then allow people to have some control again over their fate, both in this world and in the next, and to redirect their mental energies into that pursuit. This movement was denounced as not orthodox by the early Christian church, but that didn't stop it, and it continued to wax and wane over the centuries. So the common thread, he says, that runs through Gnostic and Gnostic adjacent movements is the experience of the world as an alien place into which man has strayed and from which he must find his way back home to the other world of his origin. That's the common experience.
The Matrix.
Or as I like to put it, reality is a prison created by a false god, and you must break through that to reunite with God, which you already were.
The day destroys the night divides the day. You try to run, you try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through. Ah! Yeah.
That you feel that you are living in an alien place. It is not your home. Your home is elsewhere. And the knowledge that is necessary is that to get you back to that place where you feel the peace and the belonging that you imagine that's instilled within you. He says the world, from this perspective, is no longer the well-ordered, the cosmos, in which Hellenic man felt at home, nor is it the Judeo-Christian world that God created and found good. Gnostic man no longer wishes to perceive in admiration the intrinsic order of the cosmos. For him, the world has become a prison from which he wants to escape. So the secret knowledge of the Gnostics is supposed to allow them to escape from that prison, at least mentally and spiritually, not just in the next life with death, but even now. And so that, I think, looked to the early church to be a claim for too much power for human reason or human wisdom, as opposed to God's wisdom and God's time. So, you can see that he's developing this ancient notion of Gnosticism and telling you about it because he feels as though the same impulse is at work in modern times. And in this introduction, he goes on to say, we no longer recognize it for what it is, but this is what it is. In effect, people's reaction to the utter chaos of the world and their inability to get a grip on things. And I would go
So basically, it's the light
that
Yagamis of society.
Oh.
The light Yagamis. This world is rotten. Like you remember the first part of Death Note, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, where like right before he finds the Death Note, he's all bitching and like being an angsty teenager about how horrible the world is. That's what that is. Light Yagami is like the fucking titular fucking Gnostic. I had the divine revelation to kill and decide who gets to live and die. Ooh. It's the same concept and impulse.
We are very much dealing with what Voegelin would call Gnosticism in some of the political movements of our day that are sort of in the conspiracy zone. But any ideological movement that says we have the key, the absolute truth, the sort of key that if you turn it and unlock it, everything will fit together. All the pieces of the puzzle will come into place, and you will know the absolute truth, is bordering Gnostic in Voegelin's sense of the term. And so
in Voegelin's sense of the term,
I'll cover like the next essay next week. But he says, from this attitude springs the programmatic formula of Gnosticism. Gnosis is the knowledge of who we were and what we became, of where we were and whereunto we have been flung, of where to we are hastening and where from we are redeemed, of what birth is and what rebirth. So that there's the introduction of the idea of rebirth and flungness.
You've come out now as no longer Michael but now Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
You're now not Michael Obama, you're Michelle Obama. You know,
Concept.
you've transcended. You're now the Soviet new man. You're no longer the capitalist old man of the fucking old world. Now you're a Soviet new man. You're the Atlantean, not the Lemurian. Yeah.
Of the human condition, to be thrown or flung into the world, to not have control over where and when you will be, to fully understand that the context in which you are born greatly, if not 100%, affects every aspect of your life, and you don't have any control over that. From that position, from that conscious position, people long for rebirth, for a return to Eden in a way, okay? Or as he puts it, an escape from the world. They want the means of deliverance, and Gnosticism gives the secret language that delivers, okay? So he says, finally, in this intro, the aim always is the destruction of the old world and passage to the new. The instrument of salvation is gnosis itself, which is knowledge. Gnosis means knowledge. So that is the content of the introduction that sets up the book. And then the first essay is called Science, Politics, and Gnosticism.
Out there. Yep. So everyone needs to, at the very least, even if you can't read James Lindsay, watch James Lindsay, you should at least read Eric Voegelin.
Yeah. Because that's what James Lindsay's copying. Let's not kid ourselves, he is.
Well, I mean, Voegelin is pretty much the only academic who actually bothered to examine this stuff.
Well, here's the thing. He came up with a lot of his own terms. So he's alienating himself by basically creating these niche terms. Like, if I told you that Marvel is Gnostic, or Marvel and DC are Gnostic interpretations of man, right? Just, we're going like back to the classic Guarini days, right? Where he
every time I try to make a video explaining this, I go, "You're probably wondering what the heck that means."
Yeah. What does it mean? What do you think he means by that?
At the time, I think he was going into a very dualistic understanding of the good and evil. Back when that's what the Gnostic was back then.
But no, it's actually about transcending the normal to become Superman. You know, to become a superhero, to become, to become God, essentially. You know? And the problem with that is that if you try to do that, it eventually starts an arms race between two different populations and two different people. You know? If my people are magical, so are yours, right? Mm-hmm. And you could see that here. You could already see it here with people like fucking Starhawk over here, or not Starhawk. This fucker, Spirit Science, the one guy who gets to be on YouTube by accusing the Jews of being a fucking aliens and how we were invaded by Martians in Lemuria and Atlantis and crap like that. Same shit. Go on.
So we got here. We can't just ignore this anymore. And what is that we can't ignore, Spiritverse?
There's something we need to discuss concerning our health. Individual health, collective health, all of it. This has been overdue for a while. Most people today would probably tend to agree. If one eats lots of organic and healthy food, especially fruits and vegetables, without much processed food, they'd be healthy and would live a happy, wonderful life, right? But in today's day and age, this idea comes with a bunch of red flags and warning signs.
What's this joker doing now?
Because even food labeled organic usually is anything but. Do you ever wonder why gluten in bread is suddenly such a huge issue for so many people when it wasn't for thousands of years? Or why people who practice a more vegetarian or vegan diet can still end up struggling with so many health problems? Why is it that the carnivore diet seems to be able to solve certain health challenges?
Oh no!
Like
the Gnostics are breeding, Luke. They're learning through osmosis. Oh God, help us!
That's how it survived for all these years, because it's never an explicit doctrinal belief. It's something that switches and flows and moves with the centuries and the times. It's
like, who the hell are you? I'm you, but stronger. That's what we're dealing with.
Or worse, like when a fascist meets an anti-fascist the first time, they go, "Who are you? I'm you, but honest."
Yes, exactly.
Overweight. The unfortunate situation we find ourselves in collectively that nobody is talking about is that monoculture and the big agro industry have implemented practices that have largely destroyed our nutrient-rich soil over the past 100 years. And what's worse, that same soil has been so often polluted with so many chemicals that makes its way into our bodies through our food. Remember that potato project girl? This was years ago, but even then, she showed that a store-bought organic potato had trouble growing compared to an actual potato that came from a local garden. I hate to bring up the bad news like this, but straight up, we're being lied to and this information is being suppressed. And this is what a new documentary called Common Ground threatens to expose. And what a better day to do it than on Earth Day, right?
Oh, so he's promoting a documentary?
He's promoting a documentary. I guess that's what he gets some money. Because let's be frank with ourselves, he has like 3 million fucking subscribers or what have you, like a couple million subscribers. He has good advertisement space for the new agey cagey motherfuckers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But like that is a real issue when it comes to factory farming and whatnot. Like if you look at the crop yields of like the 1950s and 60s, right? Like, actually, let's pull it up here. Let's see if we can pull it up here just to get an idea. Luke, wheat yields 1920s versus today. Like, you could see how big the wheat fields are, how big the crops were.
Well, can we just make more crops because of potassium fertilizer?
No. I mean, if you look at the crops, how big they are compared to how they are now. You know, have you ever actually seen that? You never seen the crops?
Well,
crops
all I know is that there's more of them, so I don't know if there's like a size difference.
There is a size difference of today. Verse. Keep playing it, by the way. Keep playing it.
So, oh yeah, happy Earth Day, by the way. Many blessings on you and your life. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you're probably aware that we have spent a lot of time discussing health, food, and wellness. I've often contemplated and researched what is the best diet for the spiritually minded individual, looking to find a balanced way of life, both for myself and one that I can recommend to others, especially those who are interested in mental clarity, having lots of vitality, and seeking a stronger connection with their soul. Of course, food and dietary choices are very personal to each, and my purpose here isn't to tell you to change your diet today, but to share with you something that I believe you will benefit from knowing. Now, I have personally been fascinated lately by seeing how the carnivore diet seems to help people solve certain health conditions, which we've explored: autoimmune diseases, obesity, some people even healing depression and anxiety with this diet. And this revelation has been met with very mixed responses across the board. I'm not going to argue for or against this diet at this moment in time. I think there's specific people who really benefit from it, but I don't necessarily think it's for everyone. I also won't be discussing here any moral aspects that some people might use to stand against it. Rather, speaking purely of results, I believe we're seeing what we're seeing due to a few core different things. One is, of course, the elimination of processed food and overindulgence in too many carbohydrates, all of which can lead to heavy fat storage in the body if we're not careful. But another thing we need to consider, which this documentary exposes, is that even organic plants, vegetables, and fruits today are both nutritionally depleted and often polluted with chemicals. And that unless one is very careful about what they're putting in their bodies, going above and beyond to find the most local, fresh, and truly nutrient-rich food, we still end up depleted without even realizing that it's happening. As far as spiritual diets go,
I've actually had this happen before. I've actually been in a position where I legitimately was getting sick because I wasn't getting enough like actual fiber and whatnot. Like I was eating things that were fibrous, but I wasn't getting the actual fiber at one point, you know? Yeah.
Mystic teachings, we do find so many masters and traditions alike encouraging a particular way of eating. Most commonly, the Greek and Egyptian mystery schools and the mystics of India and those other cherished Eastern traditions will most often suggest that the best spiritually balanced diet is a vegetarian diet. However, while that's still relative for us today, we also have to take into consideration the nutritional value of the plant-based food we're eating. This is equally true for animal products, because so many of the animals are not even fed the right food, and they endure massive amounts of pain and suffering, spiking cortisol levels and adrenaline in their blood, and then we're putting that in our bodies too. How can anyone recommend a proper way of eating when 90+% of the food that's available is trash? Not to mention when nearly everything in the grocery store has added sugar in it, and most people are so addicted to those chemicals, they don't even want to change. What can anyone do? Well,
simple. Don't buy your own food. Buy your own food and don't buy anybody else's crap. You know?
And especially
make it yourself.
I mean, it is annoying to most people because most people don't want to go through the process of actually processing and their own food. But buying things in cans and packages all the time is not good for you after a while.
Address this.
Yeah.
In addition to exposing a powerful light on what's going on in the world, they have explored what happens when farmers implement practices called regenerative farming and demonstrate just how much of a difference it makes to the quality of our soil and one's personal health as a result. And when all of us are personally healthy, our society also gets healthier. So please, in honor of Earth Day, our vibrant Mother Earth, and your health and the health of your loved ones, please check out this movie. And on that note, here's a couple of important things. First,
No.
the film is showing in theaters across the US just on Earth Day. But if you're either outside of the US, or a theater is too far from you, or you're watching this after the 22nd of April, you can actually organize screenings either for your local theater, or at your school, college, government agency, or even company. They've got a separate page that you can use to request and help organize a showing. And
Let's see,
big and important one. Perhaps it's one of the biggest root problems that we need to solve. And the more we begin to have this conversation,
There you go.
the quicker we'll get there. Thank you very much for
Now
tuning
we're
in
getting
today.
into it.
Oh, here we go. Oh, yes. And one thing that would help, I mean, James Lindsay makes hour-long, like 2-hour-long videos easily, but at least he puts his ego aside and just tells us what the subject is.
Yeah, and the thing, I'm of the opinion, and this is something that Carl Bernashenko is coming of the opinion, that James very well is in a position to basically create his own Gnostic sex cult. And I'm saying that without the Gnostic, without the sex, he's basically getting people to buy into the belief system, the BS, right?
Into the Gnosticism?
Yes, because it's circular reasoning. Like, in order to know about the people who are oppressing you, you actually have to know what they believe and why. And then by having that knowledge, it becomes a sort of info hazard, if you will, to use that term.
I mean,
Like the ability
he's always defaulting back to having a quote unquote liberal society, which he has to be very specific of how he defines.
which is good. That's a good thing. That's good. Because again, he could say that all he wants, but what is he going to do? What is it? What is the next step in this whole thing? Right? Keep going.
We just did a 3+ hour stream about what was going on in Colombia. I just went offline, and I was like, why don't I just check the haters on Twitter just to see if there's been any developments before I go and relax?
Yeah, one thing I like about James Lindsay, he never talks about any drama on his channel, but her position is nothing but the drama on her channel.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, like every time she goes off on these segments about James Lindsay, you know how often James Lindsay talks about his detractors online on his YouTube feed? None. Now, granted, he has a lot of drama on the Twitter and leaves it on the Twitter, but I'm not aware of it, because when Carlin talks about these drama moments he's having, I have to look it up on Twitter to find out what the heck she's talking about.
Yeah, and you know one of the things that Carlin suffers from a lot.
What's that?
In this regard, she basically is parasiting off of Lindsay's content in a lot of ways.
Is she? I thought she's just doing her own thing.
Well, she's basically bringing him up in order to basically ride the coattail of him. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of her content kind of reeks of "Notice Me, Senpai."
No.
You know what
Yes.
that means, right?
Notice me. Yes, I know what it means. Notice me, senpai. Now let's hear what she had to say.
Enjoy the rest of my evening, and oh. There have been some developments. There have indeed been some developments. Maybe I should put my sunglasses back on. Should I put my sunglasses back on? Hang on. Don't even have eye makeup on today. There we go. There we go. There we go. Yes! Yes, he has, Reagan! Yes, he has! James Lindsay, apparently, is upset that we are calling him out on this epic round of bullshit that he's trying to sell people, which of course means it's working.
Of what?
You know,
because the last time I checked, the whole argument is, oh, James Lindsay doesn't use the word capitalism. Like, well, he kind of does. I don't know why he has to use it every time you say it.
Because they don't want to be found out. Because believe it or not, these people enable the Gnostics. They enable them. I hate to be the guy that says this, but all this like spiritual leftist crap, she enables. It enables Gnosticism. It enables Marxism and whatnot. You know?
But is it necessary to make James yell capitalism all the time? Like, what's the point of that?
Oh, it's performative. It's to basically say we're not part of the problem. Don't burn me. Don't burn me, bro. Even though technically your pagan cult has enabled this idea to grow because you're very loose on sex, right? You want to fuck a lot of women, so you're more than willing to work with the feminists because you get something from them. You benefit directly from loose women. You directly benefit from feminism because you're able to double the workforce. So a lot of these ideas, like, you know, politics is downstream from culture, right? Well, if you could change the culture to be acceptable of certain things like loose women and you know, the idea that we could perfect humanity, which would basically be, you know, atheism to a certain degree, where we just constantly perfect ourselves because there's no higher standard, right? Or, you know, in this case, Gnosticism, it's the same thing. Go on.
I've actually thought about this little feud with James Lindsay. I really have. I thought about it from a historical perspective because you guys know that, like, I kind of feel like the stuff that I'm doing is not for right now. It's for the future. It's for people looking back on this moment in 25, 50, 100 years.
No one's going to know who you are in 50 years, Carlin. Let's be honest with ourselves. I mean,
no one's gonna know who I am.
I mean, yeah, no. I mean, the YouTube world is a vapor. It's going to, like, most of the work that we do or anything we do is based on either TV literature, TV work, or actual literature that's been written down. No one's going to know or care about our work in about like even 10 years from now.
You know, yeah, it's like we all want to basically be Achilles. You know, we want glory, right? But more likely or not, we're going to be like Odysseus and try to get home. You know, yeah.
What I'm creating actually survives. I think that what I'm doing is actually going to be much better in the future than it is right now. And if you look back over history, there are historical moments where you see different people, different kind of thinkers about the moment that we're in. You see them feuding with each other. You see one person saying, this is what's going on. You see another person saying, this is what's going on. And don't think I haven't thought about that. I really have, because James Lindsay, to this point, has been the person saying, this is what's going on with the left. And now I'm coming in, and I've been doing this for a while, but I'm really loudly banging the drum saying, James Lindsay is wrong for reasons X, Y, B, and Z. And he is wrong, and he needs to own his wrongness because he is wrong. And I provide these video clips from the trainings that we watch and stuff like that to emphatically demonstrate that queer theory is not a Gnostic sex cult.
James never calls it a Gnostic sex cult.
She uses that term. She uses that term a lot. And the problem here is it's correct. It's not a Gnostic sex cult.
Yeah, but James never uses that word. But James never uses that word. He never uses it in terminologies. I mean, there's sex involved. But it's not a Gnostic sex cult. I mean, queer. He even points out that queer theory is not about sex. I mean, it's about making yourself different from the normal, breaking yourself free from the status quo. That's what his point always is.
It's breaking yourself free and waking up to throw off your archonic oppressor. That's how it has to be framed, right?
And I don't know. And maybe there's something in the Twitterverse that convinces her that it is about a Gnostic sex cult, but I don't get it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Where's she latching onto it?
Yeah, because I'm watching everything from James Lindsay's YouTube feed, and I gobble it up. I love James Lindsay's video feed, and he never used the phrase Gnostic sex cult ever.
Nope, never, not once.
Queer theory has nothing to do with the law of attraction. Queer theory has nothing to do with A Course in Miracles.
Well, if you're Hermet, let's go back again. Was that last part?
Is not a Gnostic sex cult. Queer theory has nothing to do with the law of attraction.
Except it's only tangentially to its Hermetic roots, which is like the law of correspondence, was it?
The law of attraction.
Yeah, the law of correspondence. That's like the word for it.
Queer theory has nothing to do with A Course in Miracles.
What's that?
The Course in Miracles is like it's a new agey thing.
Course of Miracle? I don't know if James talked about that. Like, what is, let me look that up. Course of Miracles, what is that?
Go look it up, Luke.
Course of Miracles. What does that mean? Let's see, Living Course of Miracles, the Course of Miracles, but the Zen teachings, of course. It's all Eastern New Agey stuff. Reading a Course in Miracles. Oh, come on, give me something to work with. Course of Miracles. What do we have here? A Course in Miracles? A Course of Miracles? What is this?
A Course in Miracles. Let's look at that one right there.
Let's see.
The one with the woman.
I wanted to talk with you today about a book called A Course in Miracles. You may or may not have heard of it. It's often referred to as the New Age Bible. It's something that I studied for probably about 20 years when I was in the New Age, and it really resonated with me because it seemed so familiar. It seemed so much like the Christian Science theology that I was raised with. And there's a reason for that. The woman who is the scribe, often called the channel of A Course in Miracles, Helen Schuckman, was raised in a household with Christian Science influences. And so it took the beliefs that I was raised with that were the opposite of the Bible and took it to the next level. So for a long time, I studied and read A Course in Miracles every single day, and it completely influenced my teachings that I was writing about in the New Age. So I wanted to make this warning because I still get letters from people who say, well, A Course in Miracles says that you're supposed to forgive. And see, this is where the enemy, the devil, likes to mix in truth and lies to hook us in. Of course, forgiveness is essential.
Let's see. What's this? The history of AMC?
So let's go through and break this down. So the history of A Course in Miracles goes back to 1965, when a woman named Helen Schuckman, who was raised by Jewish parents, who her mother also was steeped in Christian Science, the Unity School of Christianity. Those were my two church upbringings. But also Theosophy, which is spiritualism.
Blavatsky!
Yep, there she is.
Fucking the dude! It's a dude, Blavatsky, dude.
And the channeling, in quotes, of ascended masters. So
yeah, nothing to do with the Course of Miracles, but they're they're just uniquely connected with each other.
They're almost like their spiritual successors, mimetic ancestors, almost.
Cousins.
You know? What?
Spiritual cousins.
Yep. Exactly.
Helen Schuckman was also an associate professor of medical psychology at Columbia University College. And it was then that she heard a voice, and the voice told her, this is A Course in Miracles, write this down. That she said was from Jesus, and that he was trying to correct what people believed about him.
Oh, really? You don't say. She had revelation, did she?
She Oh.
Oh, really? Carla, nothing whatsoever, huh? Oh, this should be fun.
It has nothing to do with any of it. Queer theory is about destabilizing normativity by attacking the gender binary because they believe capitalism created the gender binary, which put men in the workplace, earning all the money and having all the power, putting women in the home, doing the unpaid labor of raising the next generation of proletariat workers in the nuclear family, and because of social reproduction theory, the nuclear family also perpetuates capitalism, is the literal means of reproduction of capitalism.
James talks about this. I don't know what she's talking about.
Well,
I mean, he doesn't because he doesn't use the words exactly that she does, but they're talking about the same thing. It's all the same thing.
It's Babel, Luke. It's literally Babel. It's the Gnostic Babel. Here we go, Luke. I'll find it here. Here's one for you. Here's another one that I found was hilarious, because she called him out, or he called her out.
Let's see. Skip.
Where
do we? Nerdy says, I hear Red May came early thanks to a John Morgan fanfic. Well, yeah, Naruto, if you haven't been around, we have been doing John Morgan fanfiction for the last 2 days. We're not going to talk much about it today, but I do actually have something to say about this before we get started. Do you guys mind indulging me in a point of personal privilege? And I know, after this,
she calls her podcast The Cult, and it never occurs to her, maybe it's a Gnostic cult.
It is a Gnostic cult, Luke. It's always been a Gnostic cult.
It's like, what are we arguing? What are we arguing about? We have the same common enemy. Why are we yelling at each other?
Because she's part of the Gnostic cult. She's spiritually related to it. She literally is spiritually related to it.
I'll let this topic go because now we've exhausted 3 days on the James Lindsay uproar over a fan fiction that John Morgan wrote. But I have something I want to say before we get started. And
fan fiction.
It actually relates back to
who the fuck does fan fiction?
There's a certain type of person comes to mind.
What certain type of person?
People who tend to be obsessed with sex.
A Gnostic sex cult. A Gnostic sex cult made the fan fiction.
I mean, I'm going to skip ahead and tell you what it is. What the fan fiction is taking the story of Summer. What was that movie? Summer? Midsummer. And a situation where she or some other character is tying up James Lindsay, beating him and spanking him until he's burned in effigy.
Yeah, so It's basically the plot of The Wicker Man, but with James Lindsay, which I would definitely watch. That would be amazing to see The Wicker Man versus James Lindsay, and they're all a bunch of Marxist fucking occultists. We're gonna sacrifice you so we could have a better future. Or
Unfortunately,
something.
James Lindsay's been married and with kids, so I don't know if he'll be able to be a virgin.
Oh, they have to sacrifice the white man. The whiter, the better.
Let's see. Let's skip ahead a bit.
So it's not just out of left field. To catch everyone up to the last couple days, if you haven't been around, what happened is on Sunday, in my supporter Discord, at our regular weekly movie night that we've been doing for 2 goddamn years, we watched a movie called Midsummer. Midsummer, now Sam is getting a timeout. Midsummer is
blocking people because they're saying stuff.
one of the great. All of this is because I retweeted a fanfiction that I didn't even write. And quite frankly, when I retweeted it, I hadn't even read it yet, and I didn't even know James Lindsay was in it. And that's the truth. I found out that...
So, why'd you share it?
Because you want... Because shut up, Luke. Shut up. Don't ask don't ask questions.
But I'm just saying, like, if you haven't read it, and you don't know James Lindsay's in it, why are you tweeting about it? Is it because of a favor for a friend or something?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, honestly.
Right.
James Lindsay was in this fanfiction when Poetry Painter started complaining about it on Twitter. I retweeted it to support John, who has been in my community for years and is generally a pretty good writer, and who put a nice picture of me on his fanfiction. That's why I retweeted it. And all of that led to me getting diagnosed by James Lindsay as having a fucking personality disorder in which I was devaluing him.
Which personality disorder do you got?
Well, I mean, the book kind of devalues James Lindsay, considering what we just said about it.
But, what does she have, Luke? What does she have? What is...
I don't know.
Talk more about that in a second.
Let's see.
I can almost guarantee that wasn't the first fanfiction written about James Lindsay, and likely won't be the last. Yeah, because guess what, guys? This is the internet. It's the way it goes. But I want to actually just talk about this for a second before we watch a clip that James Lindsay retweeted directly related to Columbia. Now, first of all, the crazy bitch who James Lindsay apparently thinks is completely mentally well has literally been complaining about this fanfiction for days
mentally
now.
well. She's a fucking mean girl.
Let's see, here we go.
Fucking Thelma.
Here we go. I think this is it.
But that's not what I want to show you. That's not what I want to show you either. And it's just like, the amount of people, and it's not even just her is the thing. I could pull up like dozens of people who have been talking about this for days, all of whom are kissing James Lindsay's ass. And I'm sitting over here going, we literally watch socialism 6 days a week. We talk about the left 6 days a week. We go inside their private events. You guys never talk about that. We get them recorded saying the quiet part out loud. You guys never talk about that. James Lindsay never wanted to acknowledge that. But the minute that a member of my community, as a joke, as just a fun activity that, quite frankly, John Morgan never really expected people to read his fanfiction outside of my community because it was just a fun, lighthearted thing to do as an inside joke within my community. And the only reason that more people have read it outside of my community is that James Lindsay was complaining about it and retweeting psychos who stalk me on the internet. Otherwise, it would have just stayed as a private joke in my community and no one else would have seen it because that's all it was. It was just...
Well, I mean, what is the whole point of, like, what is she trying to make a point of this? Like, it's fan fiction that has him being abused and killed, and more people are reading it and realizing these people, like, are people reading it and realize that James Lindsay's a nut, or are they reading it realizing these people are nuts?
Well, I mean, if you're literally fucking ideating on ideating, I can't remember what the psychological term is. Not idealizing, ruminating on someone's fucking destruction. That's not healthy, dude. Like, if you're literally writing fan fictions where, like, you hunt down the guy who fucked you and wronged you in high school, that's not healthy, especially if you're like at 30, like, or wherever the fuck she's at, right?
Let's see, here we go.
What does that mean?
Oh,
borderline personality disorder and devaluing him. What does that mean?
You are borderline!
In the context of borderline personality disorder, devaluation refers to a psychological defense mechanism or coping strategy that individuals with borderline personality disorder may employ in their interpersonal relationships. I haven't spoken to James Lindsay in over 3 years. Oh, actually, I take that back. The last time I spoke to James Lindsay was June of 2021. So
she knows the exact date, Luke. She knows the exact date of when this all went down. That's what we're dealing with.
I, I always forget, like, what is a good definition of a borderline exactly?
Oh, basically, oh, that's actually a good question. Ramona Flowers. Magical pixie dream girl. Imagine that.
Oh, great. Brave now has AI technology. Now it's printing out the answer for me. Let's see. Borderline personality is more of a mental condition characterized by unstable emotions, relationships, and self-image. People with PVD are often experience intense mood swings and have a hard time managing their emotions. Really? Don't say. Because that doesn't all relate to a girl who every 6 months has an emotional breakdown about how no one supports her.
or like a woman who changes her fucking hair color every 5 minutes.
To be honest, I've been thinking about getting my hair color, but just for the sake of being an artist, because that's something artists do.
Dude, like, I wanted to, but I can't. I don't have the hair anymore, so I kind of have to go. I have to kind of go the Grant Morrison or some other fucking monk mode or something, right?
I mean, I don't know how much of a not owned this is for her. I mean, anyone who's followed Carlin for any particular time will see this connection. Of course, maybe for fans you'll not notice it, but kind of quasi fans like me, like people are tangentially aware of her, are going to notice. Yeah, that kind of relates to you, Carlin.
You're a borderline. You're a fucking a cluster B.
But it's not fair though. I mean, the whole spat between James and her makes no sense to me whatsoever. It would just make more sense. Look, you guys are attacking the same enemy from different perspectives. Just be done with that. We can work with. We don't need a purity spiral about our attack method.
But that's just false consciousness. She should have known better and called her by the proper pronouns and say capitalism. That's just false consciousness, Luke. It's sad.
Anywho, shall we keep going?
Let's keep going.
One of us has to be accurate. God knows James isn't doing it. I haven't spoken to James Lindsay since June of 2021. So I don't know how I have an interpersonal relationship with him at all. Devaluation involves a shift in a person's perception of others. Well, yes, there certainly has been a shift, where they view someone they previously idolized or held in high regard as unworthy, flawed, or worthless. People with borderline personality disorder often experience intense and unstable emotions and have difficulties with self-image and struggling with maintaining stable relationships.
Yeah, that's you, borderline.
She's married. She's married, so at least she has one stable relationship
that we know of. I mean, again, not to get too fucking deep into this, but it very well could be that like they're married and it's like a cuck relationship or something along those lines. And I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying, I'd be a little bit concernicus on what exactly constitutes a relationship with these type of people. No, because it's not always a Christian, Judeo-Christian concept of what love is or marriage is,
Well, I mean, she's a new ager, so she probably has a very... I don't know what her specifics of marriage or what relationships are exactly.
Nor do I.
The fact that I haven't spoken to James Lindsay in almost 3 years is evidence that I struggle to maintain stable relationships. I've spoken to James Lindsay like 3 times in my entire life. The pattern of devaluation typically follows a cycle known as splitting, where individuals with borderline personality disorder may initially idolize someone, believing they are perfect, amazing, and indispensable. I never believed James Lindsay was perfect, to be really, really clear. However, when conflicts or perceived flaws arise, the person with borderline personality disorder may rapidly shift to devaluing that individual and suddenly think they're entirely bad, evil, or undeserving of attention or affection.
You are this. She is totally this. She's showing it to us.
Seems to have some sort of perception in his head that I owe him my admiration. Here's what I'm pissed off about. It is absolutely true, and I will never deny it, and I will never take it back, that when I first woke up and I was first deep diving into trying to figure out what the left was back in 2020, James Lindsay was a huge inspiration for me. I do not take this back. In 2020, his work was awesome. In 2021, his work was awesome. His work prior to me waking up was pretty good. I wasn't as actively involved then. I haven't gone back and reverse engineered everything, but I had no problem with James Lindsay at all. In fact, I dedicated the entire last chapter of my book to him precisely because, and I don't actually take this back, I do believe that if everyone worked as hard as James Lindsay was working back then, we wouldn't have a problem right now.
So what
But
happens?
James is confused. Because James seems to think that because he inspired me back then, that I am never allowed to evolve my position, and I'm never allowed to change my mind, and I'm never allowed to have a different perception of him other than...
What's the difference, though? Like, what was the cause of division?
basically she is part of the problem. Like I said, she's part of the problem. She is a pagan who is basically just, enabling this shit. She enables it.
Please, does Shia mention what the division was? Because I've only been aware of the division. I made I was watching one of her videos and live, and I made the comment that the capitalism's a demiurge, and she said, "Oh no, that's James Lindsay's work." Like, okay, but why is that a problem? But apparently that was the first intimation that there was some. For me, that was the intimation that she and James were not on good terms with each other.
They're not. They're not, and it's sad. It really is sad.
Then worshiping at his goddamn feet. And I disagree. I was on board completely with him until he dove headfirst into the Gnosticism bullshit, and I was criticizing.
He was doing that. When is he doing that in 2020 though? Like, hold on a second. Let me check that. See. Let's see. Sovereign Nations. When was his first speech on the Gnostic stuff? Like, he kind of hinted at it with Hegel and Marx, but he didn't really go into it until, like, where was it? Let's see, what year was this? Oh, 2023. Oh, so back then when he did first his stuff on Hegel and Marx, it was way back when in 2022. So so he took that deep dive somewhere back. So I guess it was okay when they were doing the initial stuff with Michael O'Fallon with the hypo-reality and the other stuff. But I guess when he got into the Gnostic stuff, that's when the snap happened.
Yeah, because God forbid you actually go down the Gnostic hole. Because again, you're going to be stepping on a lot of toes here. You're going to be pissing off a lot of pagans and people and alienating people.
Yeah, the good hippies, like how. James talks about, like, the hippies. The hippies are not that bad version of it.
Yeah.
It's mostly just horrible. Hippieism is kind of mostly a drug-induced distraction from reality, but they're not the worst part of it. The problem is they're very easily swayed into that part of it.
Indeed. Exactly. That's exactly the point.
And she being a new ager, she's taking kind of a personal defense to this.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. So oftentimes, and this call me crazy, call me whatever you want, but I agree that he should probably use the term that's more common, like, let's say, special revelation, instead of just calling it Gnosticism, because he's alienating himself just by using these terms. You're alienating yourself, and that's not good. Keep going.
The Gnosticism bullshit the entire time. I said, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't understand this. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, for literally years, I was saying this, but I was also trying to be like, you know what? Don't throw the baby out with bathwater. Like, you have to overlook some things.
It would be. She probably mentioned it somewhere, but it would be nice if she said, like, what James doesn't know about it. That would have been nice to have here in this moment.
Well, because she didn't. Here's the problem, though. Just like with Lovecraft, right? If you actually know about what Lovecraft actually said, right, you'd realize he's a fucking crazy fucking racist.
Right.
And the people who love Lovecraft now would probably fucking be called every name under the sun by fucking Lovecraft today. Mm-hmm. So it's very much an example of the left arguing against their own self-interest and identifying with people who didn't have their self-interest at heart back then. Yeah.
It played it so fucking even-keeled with him for a long-ass time. When James Lindsay started going after activists that I was working with. Like, I'm gonna give it a real example. Justin O'Donnell. Justin O'Donnell is one of the most... Justin
O'Donnell. Who is that?
I don't know who that is. Who do you think it is?
Let's see. Justin O'Donnell. Justin O'Donnell. Who is he? I can't find... I don't know if it's him. I'm not sure if it's actually him. There are too many names.
Effective activist in the state of New Hampshire.
Okay, New Hampshire. Let's see.
BPD is just describing the female human. No, I'm sorry, but these aren't female humans. I'm sorry. They're maybe subhuman, perhaps, or like, I don't know, like a Darksider from fucking what is it? Fucking what is it called? Omega Man, I believe it is.
Let's see.
Yeah, those things.
Justin O'Donnell, is it the Libertarian for Libertarians or something? Who is this? New Hampshire, 2nd Congressional District. Yeah, he looks like, I don't know, he seems okay, I guess.
O'Donnell can be a handful, but Justin O'Donnell is an extremely, extremely effective activist. Justin O'Donnell on Twitter one day was trying to tell James, the way that you're using the word groomer is exactly the same way that the left is using the word racist, and because you are overusing the term groomer to apply to every single person that you disagree with, the term groomer is now meaningless, just like the term racist is now meaningless because the left has overused it and made it meaningless.
But
that's exactly that's a good point. It is. That's what's happening.
I mean, James Lindsay had popularized the term groomer, so I'm not sure, like, okay groomer, so I don't know why he can't own that. I mean, I've never heard. I don't know anyone. I don't know who's James has overused it on. But maybe it's just a result of people just overusing it generally.
Yeah. I think that she knows that people are going to come and hunt her ass down, and eventually, well, not hunt her ass down, but they're going to realize that all the special revelation, it's against their business plan. If that makes any sense. Keep playing.
And these were two, like, I was watching them fight back and forth. James didn't want to hear this, even though Justin was absolutely correct in his evaluation. But James didn't want to hear this, had a massive fucking hissy fit on Twitter. Now, I'm talking about, I'm friends with Justin. I'm in Justin's DMs saying, can you please stop fucking antagonizing James Lindsay? I even went into James Lindsay's DMs. I was like, he is the most effective activist in New Hampshire. What the fuck are you doing? And I was like, why are you guys even fighting?
Well, a libertarian activist in New Hampshire, is that really effective?
Not really. I mean, you'd want to be a libertarian activist in California before you become a libertarian activist anywhere else, right?
Right.
Yeah. Preach to the choir on that one.
So stupid. And then James blocked Justin, and Justin had a massive hissy fit because James fucking blocked him, and I was like, fuck you all. And stuff like that happens all the time. James Lindsay got into a massive back and forth with Corey DeAngelis. Now, James Lindsay doesn't like school choice, which is cool.
Who? Corey who?
All the time. James Lindsay got into a massive back and forth with Corey DeAngelis. Now,
Corey DeAngelis. Who is that?
I'm not entirely certain who that is either.
School choice. Corey DeAngelis. Federation of Children. Haven't really heard of him either. See, The Parent Revolution. He wrote a book called The Parent Revolution. And he just has to have the. Unfortunately, he just has to. For some reason, he's using the Marxist fists in his image. Let's see, rescuing kids from the radicals, ruining our schools, which I think he's done just for the sake of irony. So he's probably good. He's denouncing that. So what was the deal?
James Lindsay doesn't like school choice, which is Corey DeAngelis' main thing. I'm not all on the school choice bandwagon in that I don't think that school choice is actually going to solve the problem. But Corey DeAngelis is really effective. And I appreciate what he's doing, and I think it is changing the cultural conversation about what public education is, and I think that's invaluable. James Lindsay goes after fucking Corey DeAngelis all the time. The two of them are fighting, and I was doing the same thing. People were like, come to me.
Yeah, I think I don't watch Twitter. I don't go on Twitter very much, so I don't know these arguments.
Well, it's all white girl problems, isn't it, Luke? Kind of is, fortunately.
So is that all we're just having? They're just taking their Twitter spats and taking it into the YouTube spats? Because I don't care. I don't care about. I know Elon Musk has X, but I don't care about those kind of conversations. Mainly because I don't have much interactivity on X or anywhere else for that matter.
Well, I mean, it literally retards the fucking ability for people to talk, right?
Yeah.
Like, I cannot even tell you guys how often I'm asked about James Lindsay. I cannot tell you guys how many times people have come to me and say, Carla, what do you think? James Lindsay's acting crazy. He's acting crazy. He's acting crazy. And every single time, for years, even when I agreed with them, that James was acting fucking crazy, I was like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just leave him alone. Just ignore it. Like, whatever. And I was like trying to keep the peace because I didn't want to be involved. Because the truth of the matter was that I stopped listening to James in the summer of 2021. I have barely listened to anything James has done in 3 years. But I hear about him all the fucking time. People talk to me about him all the time. And for literally...
You know how many people I hear talk about you? None.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about, he's very effective. All these people are effective at activism. I've never freaking heard of them. But I know James.
Yeah. Exactly. You get it, Luke.
I mean, to be fair, when I leave the internet and go into the real world, when I explain James's work to people, people are like, well, who the heck is James? And I have to, because I obviously understand that people don't, but I can explain James to people, but I don't think anyone has a hint. If they don't know who James is, they probably don't have no clue who Carlin is. I mean, I've never run into the people who just run to Carlin, who praise Carlin. But, you know, it's all internet spat. It's all stupid because it's not helping the conversation. And maybe James just has a massive ego where everything has to go his way. And I get that concern. But this back and forth between the both just makes no sense. I want to wash my hands of all of this on both of them. Like, you two are having... I don't care who started this. I'll finish this. That's what I want to say.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're dealing with, right? We're dealing with that type of shit. We're dealing with this... I don't even know what you call it.
Like, I mean, and I guess, you know, I always make the joke to you that both Carlin and James are both former leftists, and so they haven't gotten over their, like this kind of mindset, the absolute controlling mindset where the, like, you know, David or Horowitz always says, inside every leftist is a totalitarian screaming to get out, and neither one of them have gotten over that ego problem yet.
Yep. No, I fundamentally agree with you on that. That is true. I think that's the case, what we're seeing, you know? And
maybe just this is just a sign that people on the quote-unquote right need to adopt these Eric Voegelin conversations. Because the closest thing we have is, like, Tick History, and he just makes a video. He has a couple videos talking about these topics, and he's very academic and very forward, and maybe it just needs a time for more people on the quote-unquote right-wing activism to finally talk about that kind of stuff.
Well, the problem with the right-wing activists is that they care about numbers. They care about the fact that we need to have the gay vote, we need to have the LGBT vote, we need to have, you know, the gamer vote, we need to have all these different votes, and so they'll sacrifice and compromise, and as a result, the Gnostics keep getting stronger. So no one wants to actually win, because if they did win, well,
I mean, Trump is the only one who wants to win, and no one wants Trump to win.
Yep, precisely. You get it.
Because, I mean, heaven forbid we actually, and not to bring the reactionary commentary in here, but it would be so horrible if we didn't have the consensus, if we didn't have the cathedral in charge anymore. Would it really be so horrible if the people actually have a say in how the country is run?
Yes. Yeah, you get it. You understand. You get it completely.
But there is that big disconnect, the big political disconnect, because the difference between the cathedral, the people, and the people who support the cathedral. And it's just, it's kind of like the old libertarian battle. They're always right, but they never win. I feel stuck. I'm not a libertarian, but I feel like I'm in that patch. I'm right, but I never win. It's like, it's really annoying.
Yep. That's exactly what's happening right now. Anyhow, Luke, I'm kind of tired. If it hasn't already been shown, I'm kind of tired, so I think we're going to end it here.
All right. I have one little clip to share.
All right.
And you weren't around to help when that blue guy jumped me again.
You're the only one who ever sees this blue guy, Duncan.
He's real!
Well, of course he's real to you, dear, but that's because you're probably insane.
Oh my god. Is that from Freakazoid still?
Yes, it is. I'm going to be quoting him for a while.
Oh my god. That's because you're insane.
I'm the result of Freakazoid. The world of Freakazoid finally made manifest.
Jesus Christ.
Aren't we all, though?
Yep. Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, be good to one another and take